Okay, so you can ask questions from the floor. I have 2 questions in English. The first question is, I have low blood pressure and my doctor recommended that I should drink a glass of red wine a day to help increase my blood pressure. In this case, have I broken the rule of Sinha, the 5 precepts? Yes, it's a simple answer. If you remember, on the first evening, I gave some reflections on the particular nature of morality in Buddhism and the significant differences from the moral codes in other religions. To recap, in the theistic religions, or the great monotheistic religions that grew up in the Middle East, Judaism, Christianity, Islam, they believe in a creator God and one who created humanity and laid down rules that human beings should obey, and if they're good and they obey the rules, then they'll go to heaven forever and ever, and if they're bad and they do bad things, then they'll go to hell forever and ever. So it's a kind of a basic reward punishment system, kind of carrot and stick kind of idea. So as Buddhists, we don't believe that that's the way things are, or that's how things are set up. And we start off with the simple question of what's the best way to live together in communities? What's the best way we can live together as family, or as in a village, in a business? And what are the kind of underlying factors of a healthy, flourishing family or community? And what can we do to create or sustain those kinds of healthy communities? And the answers that we get is we need, at the very least, a sense of safety. We need to feel safe. We need to feel safe from physical, verbal abuse, emotional abuse. We need to be able to, ideally, just to put something down that belongs to us and not have to worry that someone's going to steal it. Or we have to, or we would like to have the kind of security and ease and peace of mind to know that someone is not trying to take our husband or wife or girlfriend or boyfriend away from us behind our back, or that our boyfriend, girlfriend, or our partner is not seeing somebody else behind our back. We need to feel a sense of ease, that we don't always have to be worrying that someone is lying to us and trying to cheat us and deceive us. And we need to have, or we appreciate being in a situation where we have that sense of security, that someone is not drinking alcohol and taking drugs, so they're not responsible for their behavior and not able to control their behavior, and will act in unpredictable or harmful ways towards us. So we start off with certain basic principles, like what would be an ideal for our family or for our community. And then we get to the real practical, so well, what can you actually do, practically speaking, to try to create or to sustain that kind of environment? One of the key factors, we can say, looking at those points I've made already, is a sense of trust. We say that's probably the key component. And something I've been looking into recently, this is something of a digression, because I often get questions about, how do people practicing precepts fit into this sort of cutthroat, competitive environment. Well, there's a very interesting area of economics that you might want to Google or study yourself. It's called the economics of trust, and the extent to which economic systems function through trust. Through you trust in your bank, when you go to buy something, the shopkeeper has to trust in your credit card company, for instance. Trust underlies so many transactions, and the more trust there is, then the more you can cut costs. If you're always having to check and to be aware of being cheated all the time, then you can waste a lot of time and money. When you're doing business with people that you trust, you can do it very efficiently and very well. It's one example of, or one way of pointing out that this very superficial idea that it's the dishonest and the unscrupulous people that always get ahead is not necessarily true. Anyway, we're talking now on the individual or the local level, family, community level. Trust. So how can we trust people when people don't know themselves, people have very little self-discipline, very little self-control, are very selfish, indulgent, blind? How can we have any kind of trust when most of the people we know are like that? And not only are they like that, but very few of the people who are like that or even see it as a problem. Well, to begin with, the path forward, and the best we can hope for, is we recognize the value of precepts. Now, we can't, as an act of will, just decide, as I was talking about the subject of forgiveness yesterday, you can't just say, from now on, I'm not going to be jealous of anyone, I'm not going to be nasty and cruel and selfish, I'm going to be a good person. It's totally unrealistic, because you can't make those kinds of changes just by making some kind of decision that you're going to be a different person. Because all those habits and negative emotions and so on have been accumulated over many years, maybe many lifetimes. But what you can do, and what members of a family and a community can do, is to make some boundaries and to take on certain kinds of restraint as to how we act and how we speak. Now, this area of our life is one which responds to willpower. So if you see something, like you see something, maybe you think, oh wow, what a cool, maybe you think, what a cool clock that is, I'd really like that clock in my bedroom. So you have a desire, you have the kind of animal instinct, you want something and you want to have it for yourself, but then you don't. You say, well no, well, why? Well, it would be wrong, it would be bab, or it would be whatever. And so over and over again in our life we have this experience where we don't follow what we want to do, even if it's in a small thing, like you might see a clock or something that or an iPod or something, you think, I like that for myself, but you don't take it. So that's a proof, isn't it, that unlike animals, we have what we call a reflexive ability. And that means the ability to stand back from our instincts and to evaluate them and to make choices. Or to put it in a simple kind of way, is to say no. We can all say no on certain occasions for certain circumstances. And that's a basic human quality. It's something that makes us human, that we can do that. So that's the tool we use. That's the basis of Buddhist morality. We're taking this human quality, this psychological fact that we are not just the slaves of our instincts, that although we have instincts, we don't necessarily in every case have to follow them. And then we take that and we educate that and we train it and we discipline it in order to create a sense of self-respect and a sense of trust in a community. So if you're living in a family or a community where people have, get angry with each other every now and again, if people who get angry, then when they get angry, they shout and they swear and they're violent, then you're not going to feel very happy. You're going to be very stressed out. But if you're living in a community where although people lose their temper every now and again, they get angry and upset, they don't express that physically or verbally. They restrain the physical and verbal expression of anger. Now it's important to recognize that this is not an argument in favor of repression, or just pretending or telling yourself you're not angry, or just holding everything down until you explode. But it's a recognition that when you act upon anger, will make things worse. You might have a very temporary sense that things are a little bit better, but in the long run you make things worse. You make the relationships worse. You make the environment in which you're living worse. So it's recognizing there is anger, but not needing to follow it or to indulge in it or to express it. So if you're living somewhere where you know, I'm completely safe here, even though we have arguments every now and again and we get upset with each other and hurt and offended and so on, at the very least we're all safe. We don't ever abuse each other physically or verbally. And so we take that kind of standard, and each of the 5 precepts is applying that to a different area of our life. Say with the 3rd precept, okay, you're say a young married couple. You don't expect that your husband or your wife or your girlfriend or your boyfriend no longer finds anybody else attractive except for you. They might have a very first period when you're in love, but after a while it's just natural and normal. But if you have the confidence and the trust that even though my girlfriend or my boyfriend may find someone else attractive, they won't express that physically, verbally. They won't do anything behind my back. And that's a way of cutting all that kind of suspicion and paranoia and jealousy, because you have that sense of trust. If you don't have the sense of trust, then you can read something into so much, even your spouse or your boyfriend says they're coming when they come back later than they said they would do, and they have some excuse and you're not sure whether to believe them or not, and you start to worry and start to bumdang, and then you want to look in their mobile phone and see their last number and all these kinds of things. And just how much suffering, and because you don't trust each other. So if you make an agreement, you say, look, I'm not perfect, every now and again I see somebody and maybe I feel like flirting with them or something, but you can trust me that I would never do anything behind your back. And so as normal human beings with normal sexual desires, you can be at peace in a relationship when you take that 3rd precept as your standard for conduct. So this has nothing to do about believing in God or not believing in God. It's just common sense. What increases the quality of relationships and the way that we live together is groups, in families and in larger communities or even in societies. Now the sort of a long way round here, but coming back a little bit to this question, when the breaking of a precept is in the 5 precepts is always dependent on intention. There has to be intention. And so in the famous teaching of the Buddha, he said, Sila is intention. The essence of Sila is intention. This is why this introspection and looking within and being able to recognize your intentions is important training in keeping precepts. Now, if you have the intention to kill, for instance, then that would be breaking a precept, no matter what your reason for that might be. Now, if you don't have the intention, if you were driving a car and you accidentally ran over a cat or a dog or something, although it would be very, I'd hope you'd feel rather bad about it for a while, but there's no reason that you would feel guilty for it or you created bad karma because you had no intention to do that. Every time that you drive a car, then it's almost inevitable that small insects will get hit by the windscreen and die. So it's not possible to live a completely harmless life, even as a monk. But what you're careful of is your intention. So with each rule, it said the question of whether or not you break the precept is answered by what is your intention. Did you intend to do that? So in this particular case, did you intend to drink red wine? Answer is yes, I did, because my doctor told me to. Okay, well that intention to drink is what determines whether you've broken the precept. As regards the heaviness of the karma, how significant that is, and the sense of karma is dependent on the reasons why you drank. So if you break a precept and you do it in a very heedless, shameless kind of way, and you do it in a completely unnecessary kind of way, then you can create a lot of bad karma. But if you were to do something on the orders or the suggestion of a doctor, then the karma would be much less. Of course, you're not drinking to a level of intoxication. You believe you're doing it for your health. But at the same time, your precepts are being broken, and it's a shame. And question is there no alternative? Yes, maybe there is some evidence, and even the evidence regarding the medical properties of drinking red wine is not universally acknowledged. It's an opinion that some doctors hold and some don't. The question is, as a practicing Buddhist, you would say to your doctor, look doctor, I recognize that I need to do something about my low blood pressure, and that drinking red wine is one possibility, but are there any others? And the doctor said, well, yes, you could do this instead or that instead. And even if it's more difficult or more expensive, then you put your precept first. And you say, well, I prefer to do that instead so that I don't break my precept. So the precepts are giving you standards and giving you ways to reflect upon your conduct. So yes, it is breaking precept, not kind of a terrible thing, but if you can avoid it, it's better to